We're learning as a schus for Shlema for Ilan Chaya Baserach and Shira Bashalamis. We are on Chof Beis Amen Aleph. Right in the middle of the Amid. Amrei Shlakus. Kol HaMashlim Mikvah, Mashlim Mekir, whatever substance, and the Gemara is going to discuss which substance we're talking about. Whatever substance can be added to a mikvah to complete the 40 sa, a mikvah, in order to be effective, has to add up to 40 sa. So whatever amount arrives at 40 sa, whatever substance could be used to complete the 40 sa, could also be used to complete the mekir. But l'revius ein mashlim. But it's not going to be able to be mashlim. This substance won't be able to be mashlim if you need a revius. Rashi says that for natilas yadayim, you need to have, when you wash your hands before a suda, you have to wash your hands so that this substance can't be used to complete the revius. Lamute mai. What substance are we saying that can be used to complete your mikveh or to complete your may kiyar that was said that we're talking about the Mekadesh Yadayim Raglayim of the Kayanim in the Beis HaMikdash, but not for Ervius. Ilem lemute tit hanoduk. If you'll say it's talking about a very liquidy mud, mud, it has just a little bit of dirt in it. But you could basically you could pour it. It's pourable. Hechidami, what exactly is the viscosity of this mud? If this water with mud in it has a little enough dirt in it that a cow would bend down and drink it, then I feel l'revius nami. Then it's full-fledged water, and it's not just good to add up to complete a mikvah and to complete a kiyar. It also is enough to complete a revius for washing hands. And if a parah can't drink from it, then it's not water at all. It's basically dirt. And if you have a mikvah with 39 saw, you can't add 1 saw of dirt to complete it. And the same thing for the kiyar. Ella, so what is your next possibility? Lemute, you have chushin adumin. It's coming to exclude the Rashi says these insects, red insects, that these are red insects that grow from the water. They spontaneously create themselves from water. We said that whatever the substance is can be used to complete a mikvah, to complete the amount of water in the kiyar. If you have 39 saw of water in your mikvah, or if you have, let's say, enough water for 4 people in your kiyar and not for 3 people and not for 4 people, you could add this to it. But he's saying if you're talking about these bugs are so much considered water, since they originate from the water, they're really considered to be just like water itself. And you could have a whole mikvah made up of bugs. It sounds like remember that old TV show Fear Factor, that they used to throw people into tanks of bugs. So you could make a whole mikvah full of these bugs and dunk in it. They're looking very skeptical. But the Gemara is saying that since the bugs come from the water, they're treated as water. Listen, nowadays we're very makbid on bugs and water, right?
That's what I was thinking. We have to put a filter on that water source.
We're saying bugs that come from water, you can't eat them, but you can dunk in them. So you don't have to get rid of those water. You don't have to filter your mikvah. You could even use the bugs to dunk in. The time you can make a whole mikvah of it. The time you're by anything that is created from the water, you can be tovel in it. And they have a very strange example. Matvilin be'enei shel dog. One can even be toivel in the eye of a fish. I guess if a whale, maybe a whale, it's considered to have, the whale is also considered to have stemmed from the water, though the eye comes from the water. So if you have a whale that dies and it has an eye that's 40 saw, you could jump into its eye. If I guess if it's liquefied, if it's dead and the eye liquefied, you could use the eye as a mikvah.
Mhm.
I listen. I don't have. I don't. I'm not sure between that or the bug which is worse. Maybe this might be worse. So Karashi be'eni shel dug, the last narrow line. Dug gadol, a large fish. Shenimuk shuman enei b'chayrei, that the water of its eyeball liquefied in its hole, and you want to dunk in it as a mikvah. Says you could do that. So in any case, enough with the gory details. But the point of the matter is, we're saying just like the eye of the fish and the bugs will be the same thing. So there'll be no reason to say that you can complete a mikvah with the bugs, because you can make the whole mikvah from the bugs. So this member of Reish Lakish would be inaccurate. So Amra Papa, the Papa says, what is it coming to exclude? Lamute nasan sa v'natalsa. It's coming to exclude if someone has something that's clearly not water, like yayin or oil or whatever it is, something that's not considered water, but he had a mikvah of 40 saw, and he added an extra saw of, let's say, of oil. So now it's 41 saw, and then he took away a saw from the mikvah. So the din is that extra saw, even though obviously when you take away a saw, it's not all going to be just the oil. You're taking away other things. But even so, we hold that that's a kosher mikvah. So that extra saw that you took away, that you added and then you took away, so that's going to be enough to be mashlim the mikvah. Even though now you have exactly 40 saw, and you know some of it is oil, but that extra amount is mashlim the mikvah or the kir, the tanan. Mikvah sheyesh by mem saw mechuvenes, a mikvah that has exactly 40 saw, nasan saw and not saw. If he added a saw of something that's not qualified for use as a mikvah, and then he took away a saw from that mixture, harayz a kosher. It's considered a kosher mikvah. This is true even up to 50%. That means you could have a mikvah of 40 saw and added 19 saw of oil, and then take away 19 saw. As long as you know that what you have left is for sure 21 saw of water and 19 of oil at the maximum, it's still going to be kosher. Now the Gemara says another point on this halacha. So that's going to be the answer. We've answered, we explained that's what's going to be kosher for a mikvah and kosher for meikir, but it won't be kosher in a revius if you have a revius of water and you add a little bit, a thimble full, it's exactly a revius, and you add a thimble full of oil, and then you take away a thimble full, that's going to passel the revius. You can't use it to wash your hands. Another din, Amar Papa, on this halacha that we just said, in kadach by revius, matvilim by machtan v'tzinois. If someone makes a hole in the wall of the mikvah, and a revius of water gathers in there from the May mikvah, matvilim by machtan v'tzinois, you're allowed to be toivel in that hole, needles and thimbles or tubes, even though, let's say, the water of the mikveh receded, and this revius hole on the side of the mikveh is no longer connected to the 40 saw, since the din is midaraisa, you can really be toivel a needle in a revius. It doesn't need 40 saw. But the Chachamim misaken that everything needs 40 saw. But in this case, since that water originally was part of 40 saw, even though now it's only a revius, we allow you to be toivel needles and small objects in that revius. Amar Reish Lakish, Mei mikvah ksherim lemei kir. Waters of a mikvah, which is water that was not from a mayim chayim, right? We talked about how they would lower the kiyar down into the mei goyla, the deep waters that were attached to the primeval waters that are part of the water table. It's not that it's not considered mei mikvah. That's not water that was gathered. That's water that's always there, the mayim chayim. So he says, this May Mikvah, it doesn't have to be the Mayim Chaim. Even May Mikvah, the water from a Mikvah, Mayim, that's not She'uvim, Mayim that was collected, is kosher for a Meikir. Are you saying that a Kir doesn't need Mayim Chaim? Now we're going to prove that that's not true with a little bit of a lengthy analysis. Vatanya. B'mayim v'loy b'yayin. This pasuk b'mayim is talking about the kerev v'krayim, the imurim, right? So we know that on a carbon, you take the dam, you do the avodas hadam, and then after the avodas hadam is completed, you did the shchita halacha, kabbalah halacha, and zrika. Then you bring the imurim and you burn them on the mizbeach, and then the basar, depending if it's a chatas, it's mutter for the kehanim. If it's the basar of a shlomim, you can give it to the owners. But we take the emurim and you first burn them on the mizbech. So the pasuk says, "V'aker v'akrayim yirchatz b'mayim." You take the emurim and you wash them in water. V'ikra v'kaynes hakoil v'ikter hamizbecha. Oilahu. This is talking about an oila. Reich nichayach l'Hashem. That's what gets burnt on the mizbech. The kerev and the krayim of the oila get burnt on the mizbech. So Zok the Gemara, what this rechitza of the mayim that you do for the kerev and the krayim? But mayim, what kind of water is it? V'loy b'yayin. You can't use wine to wash the kerev and krayim before bringing it on the mizbech. B'mayim, v'loy b'mazuk. Use mayim, and you can't use even diluted wine. They used to take wine and mix it with 2/3 water to make it drinkable. You can't even use mazuk to wash the kerev and krayim. But memayim l'rabah shar mayim, and mayim is coming. The mayim is coming also to be marba mayim that is not. The Gemara wants to say mayim that's not mayim chayim. That's the way we understand it. It could even be mei mikvah. Zok the Gemara, the kal v'chaymer l'meikir, and certainly if you could use this not mayim chayim, like we just said. Mayim acher, the Rashar mayim. Also, you could use mekir, which the Gemara is going to say is mayim chayim. My kal v'chayim l'mekir. What is the kal v'chayim that we say if you could use shar mayim, they could certainly use mekir. Lav the mayim chayim ninu. Is it not coming to say that the mekir has to be mayim chayim? So if you're allowed to use other waters that are not mayim chayim, you could certainly use the mekir that are mayim chayim. Zok the Gemara, look, the Kaddish, so that would be a raya that use mayim chayim, use mayim chayim for mekir. Zok the Gemara, no, not necessarily. The Kaddish, the point is as a kal v'chaymer for mekir because it's put into the mekir. The kir is a klisharis, so it's mekadosh the water inside. It becomes kaddish. So if you could use not kaddish water, you could certainly use kaddish water for washing the kerev and krayim. Can you make a kal v'chaymer from the fact that the water is kaddish? That when we try to figure out what is mayim, it's the Gemara is a little. Let's see the Rashi. Rashi says himself, we don't know exactly what he's saying. This is called water, and this is not. Rishon says mayim she'en lam shem levai is not going to be water. He's saying I don't know legabi what. Rashi says I don't know what he's referring to. Miyo shamina mina mayim stama ein mekir kashima. but it tells you what the definition of mayim is. So what did Rav Shmuel say? Mayim she'em lehem shem levai, mayim that doesn't have any other name attached to it. In order for mayim to be called mayim, it can't be called mayim this or mayim that. Yatsu meikir she'esh lehem shem levai. So that excludes the water of a kiyar. That's not considered mayim because it's called meikir. It's not just called mayim. So you can't say so. L'chayr meikir is not included as mayim, and it can't be used to wash the caravan krayim. So what do we say? So what does it mean when we say v'kal v'chayim lemeikir? Elalav deruyin lemeikir. It must mean not the actual meikir because that has a shem levai, and that's excluded from being mayim. It must mean what is capable of being meikir. Alma mayim chayim ninu. So it must be that there's something special about the meikir. It's not just regular water. So it must be that it's mayim chayim. So l'chayra, this is shver. What Rabbi Yirmiyah said, b'shem Rish Lakish, that says may mikvah ksherim l'kei meikir. He said it doesn't have to be mayim chayim. It could even be regular water from a mikvah. So the Gemara, no, we have a teretz. It's a machlekes tanoim. Tanoi. Rabbi Yochanan meikir. Rabbi Yochanan says meikir are used for the meikir. Rishmol are mei ma'ayin. I'm sorry. Dam Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says it's a machlekes tanoim. Meikir Rabbi Shmuel are mei ma'ayin. Rabbi Yochanan says that the meikir are made out of mei ma'ayin. It has to be mayim chayim. Chamayim shar meimas hein. It's other meimas. So this that we brought from Rish Lakish originally, that was like the Chachamim, but this, remember that we said from Rabbi Yochanan, is that's going according to the Manama that says it has to be Mayim Chai. Gemara continues. We're on the top of Chav Beis Amid Beis, 5 lines on the top. We said in the Mishnah, an Aral who does Avaida passes the Avaida. Aral, Minolin, frankly Gemara, where do we know this from? Where do we know that the avoid of an aral passes? We don't have a pasuk in the Torah from it. But we can learn it out from pasuk in Tanakh in Yecheskel. Kol ben nechal aral leiv aral basal yavei el mikdashi. The pasuk says over there, any ben necher, any stranger who's an aral leiv, who has a cut off heart, aral basar, and he is uncircumcised. El Mikdash. He shouldn't come into by Mesa Magdish. We know in the Machli Avodah, how do we know that it's not just that he can't come into the Beis Hamikdash, but if a Kayan does the Avodah while he's in Aral, Leiv or Aral Basar, he passes. The Chsiv, B'haviachem. The Pasuk says, B'haviachem, B'nei Nechar, Arle Leiv, Arle Basar, Lias Mikdash, Chalaloi, Es Beisi. So it says, so it says l'chalas basi. So it's saying that it's not just that that they're not allowed to come in, but it also says l'chalas basi that they're going to be mechalal the avoid. Tana Rabban ben Necher, the Torah pasuk said a stranger yachol ben Necher mamish. Maybe that means he has to be mamish a guy in order to pass all the avoid. How do we know? We're saying a ben Necher. We're saying a aral leiv or an aral basa. We're saying a kohen who's a regular yid, who's a kohen, who's an aral, he ruins the avodah. Maybe it's only a ben necher, only if he's a guy. Tamalema aral leiv. The pasuk says aral leiv that his heart is cut off. So that's not possible. We can't be talking about a guy whose heart is cut off. He's not expected to be a shemitero mitzvahs. So the Gemara imke ma tamalema ben necher. What does ben necher tell you? It means that it's somebody who's it's not just that he is having impure thoughts, wrong thoughts about he's not committed, but it's talking about someone who's a mummer who regularly is ovid, he's over on the mitzvahs. Other Rishonim say that's Rashi's pshat. Other Rishonim say it's talking about someone who's ovid avodah zarah. So that's what it means. Ben necher. It's not just stam and aral leiv, it's someone who has machshavas of avodah zarah. So like the Gemara ve'enli ella aral leiv, that would only tell me someone who's a mummer or And how do I know someone who is missing a milah that he's also going to pass the avodah? Tamalayim of arobasa. It also says arobasa. Utsrichi. And we need both of these things. The Kasav Rachmana arobasa. If the pasuk would just say arobasa mishum nemais, someone who's an arobasa who's missing a milah, it's not. He doesn't belong in the Beis Hamikdash. He's disgusting. Aval ara leiv the loy mois, but ara leiv who there's no physical manifestation of his arelus, maybe emaloi, maybe his avodah is going to be kosher. V'yashmin ara leiv, if it's ara leiv, mishum de ein liba l'shamayim. Listen, someone who can't. There's a. It's discussed in the Mavarshim. It's a discussion about whether an aral, a kayan who's an aral who doesn't have a milah, if he's passed, it means even a kayan who didn't get a milah because his older two brothers died from milah. So we say that he does. You don't do a milah on such a person. So he didn't do anything wrong from not having a milah, but. Someone who's a Ara Leiv is someone who's a rebellious. He doesn't want to do the mitzvahs. So I might say, Ara Leiv is Shum Ein Libel Shamayim, Aval Ara Basa the Libel Shamayim, that he's trying to do the right thing. Emaloi, maybe he should be kosher. Tzrichi, that's all we need, both of them. Okay, now we're going to start a very complicated Gemara about Tumah, about the Tumah, the heter of Tumah of Pesach. And there's long explanations of things that we need to know from the beginning, which we're not going to do. We're going to start now. We're going to start. Maybe tomorrow we'll go back and review and see what we missed as far as what you need to know up front. We'll try to learn it a little bit, and we'll probably end up going back and reviewing this because we only have another 5 minutes. So think about Amru Ziknei Darim. The Ziknei Darim, these are the we're talking about what we said in the Mishnah, Tamei Pasel. In the Mishnah we said that someone who's Tamei who does the Avodah, a Kain who's a Tamei who does the Avodah, he passes the Avodah. We said the same thing, Legabe a Tzvul Yoim, as well as a Mechusar Kippur. So about this din that a Tamei who does Avodah is Pasel. Amar Ziknei Darim. The Zkanim from the south said, Lo shanu ela tamei sheretz. This is only talking about a kayan who's tamei sheretz. He's going to pass the avodah. Aval tamei meis, but someone who's tamei meis, mitoich shemeratza betzibar, meratza nami biyachid. Since a tamei meis, there's a heter that someone who's tamei tumas, a kain who's tamei tumas mates, if he brings a carbon tzibur, the carbon tzibur is mutter. So therefore, if he's going to do it for a yachid, for a carbon yachid, it's not. But the evet, it's not going to pass. So let's try some of the. Let's try to say some of these halachas that we have to know about this. First of all, we have to know the different types of tumah. So what we always think of as the main tumah is tamei tumas mace. Someone who touched a mace, the din is he has to wait 7 days. During those 7 days, on the third and seventh day, he gets spritzed with the mayim, with the mechatos from the paraduma, and then on the 7th day, he's taivel in the mikvah, and the night of the 7th day, he becomes tar. Then you also have a tamei tumas sheretz, who he becomes tamei, and he just has to go into the mikvah, and that night he's going to become tar. And then you have the zav that they have to wait, depending on what kind of zav, different amounts of time. They're going to have different rules. So there's a din of tuma is chutra b'tzibur, that although b'derech klal, if a person wants to bring a carbon when he's tamei, he can't do so. But the Torah says we're going to bring it. We've come across this before. The carbon Pesach, the Torah says that it should be brought b'moyadai at its time, and we darshan that to mean that it should be brought, even though we know it's strange. It's strange that we say this din by carbon pesach. We know there's a din of pesach sheni, that someone who's tamei brings his carbon, he has a second chance to bring the carbon. But nevertheless, if roiv, we darshan b'mayde that you bring a carbon of the carbon pesach even b'toma, and that means to say if roiv of Klal Yisrael, or as we're going to see, if roiv of the kahanim are tamei, we disregard that and we say we bring the carbon in spite of the tuma, and it's not going to be possible. Now, there's two ways of looking at this, at what the heter is. Do you say that the reason why the carbon pesach is hutra is because it's considered, since everyone is bringing at the same time, it's considered a carbon tzibur. So therefore, this din that we say that the pesach is hutra when roiv of Klal Yisrael is tamei, is now it's going to be treated as a tuma hutra b'tzibur, or do we say that it's because of it's a kvua loizman, since it has a specific time that it's supposed to be brought? That's the reason why it's that's why it's brought at that time. And then we're going to say that's always going to include excuse me. That's always going to include every carbon sibur is generally at a certain time. But it also would apply even to but the only carbon yachid that has a time is the carbon pesach. Everything else a person brings individually when he needs to bring it. So, but in any case, the din of tuma hutra legabe the carbon pesach is only when the tzibur, when roiv of the tzibur is tamei, but everyone else and a yachid has to wait for pesach sheni. Now,
so how does the Kohen bring it to the base in the base of Mikdash, or just shacks it outside the base of Mikdash? What are we talking about?
You do the carbon pesach the regular way. The kayin, even if the kahanim are tamei, they have to go into the base of Mikdash and they have to go into the chatzar and bring the carbon.
And that's mutter.
Yeah. Now listen, I could. That's the way I understand it. It could be we're going to learn more kachim, and then I'm going to find out that they have to do it in some part of the chatzar that's not considered to be kodesh. Very likely there is some way of addressing this issue, but you have to bring it. You have to bring the carbon. Right? They're going to have to do the avodah. Obviously, the kahanim have to do the avodah. They have to bring the dam and the zrikas dam. That's going to have to be in the Beis Hamikdash, even though they're tummy. But we're not yet up to the kahanim. What we're talking about now is the people bringing the carbon. They don't have to go into the Beis Hamikdash at all. They could just send it in with the kahanim and wait outside. And we're going to see later on, if we're talking about over here, where they're going to be tahar that night or not. I'm not sure which case we're talking about. But in any case, this din of umayadai, when the Torah talks about this heter of the carbon pesach, but what it talks about is tumas meis. So there's going to be an assumption that what we're talking about is a tumah of tumas meis, not necessarily that of sheretz. In addition to this, that even though there's a din that you can't do a avodah b'tumah, the tzitz is meratza on if someone does avodah with dam or the emurim became tamei. If a kohen did it in spite of the fact that it was tamei, the tzitz is meratza and says that the carbon is not going to be possible. So that's going to be the case. The question is going to be, is that going to also apply if the kohen himself was tamei? If we don't have, in a case where it's not a carbon tzibur, so we don't have the heter of tuma hutra b'tzibur, are we going to have the heter even by a tumas, a carbon yachid of the tzitz meratza? Okay. So we said that tuma, our Mishnah said that tuma is going to make a carbon possible. So the Ziknei Darim said, Lo shanu ala tamei sheretz. This is only legabi the tama of a sheretz. Al tamei meis, mitoich shemeratza betzibur, since when, so like we said, tuma is hutra betzibur. So if a kayin is going to bring the carbon betzibur, even though he's tamei, it's going to be a kosher carbon. So it's going to be b'di'eved meratza even for a yachid. Make as a memotzinu. We say wherever the tumas tzibur would be kosher for a kayin to do, b'di'eved a kayin who brings a carbon yachid, even though they're tamei, it's going to be kosher b'di'eved. Even though l'chatchili can't do it, the tzitz is going to be meratza and make it good. However, but this din, they say, is only it's only the kind of tumah that is going to be merutza legabi the tzibur, which is tumas meis. So tumah sheretz, the tumah sheretz is going to betzibur is still going to be puzzle. So if a kain is puzzle, that's not going to help. So the tzitz will not help for a carbon yachid that was brought betumah of tumah sheretz. Okay. What time is it? Oh, it's 8:05. Okay, we'll stop over here. Beshem will continue. We did a little bit of we laid a little bit of the foundation. Tomorrow we'll try to go weiter in the din of tumas.
Okay. What time tomorrow?
I think maybe in shul at 7:30.
Shul at 7:30. They have 8 o'clock